Hello, everyone, and welcome to the eighth episode of Beyond Mirage. Today, I have with me Rohan Pasrija, who has done postgraduate in counseling psychology. The three words by which I can define Rohan sir is counselor, empath, and spiritual. The most important thing I like about him is he blends modern rationality with ancient spirituality in order to provide a holistic healing experience. Welcome, Rohan sir, to the podcast and the web series of Beyond Mirage.
Thank you so much, Jay, for having me. And there's no need to call me sir. We're not living in the colonial era. You can just call me Rohan.
Okay, Rohan,
And I'm happy to be here.
that's great. That's great. Uh, so, Rohan, when I was actually going through your Instagram profile, the first thing that caught my eye was spiritual talk therapy. So, can you please tell us that what spiritual talk therapy is about?
Yeah, so traditionally, when we talk about talk therapy from a psychology perspective or from a counseling perspective, talk therapy is a way for you in a safe environment to express your feelings, to express your emotions, to talk about anything that's concerning you. It could be a serious concern, it could be a relatively minor concern, not like we categorize concerns into minor or major, but depending on whatever you're going through, talk therapy, the idea behind talk therapy is that when you have a conversation about it, especially to a professional and not a friend, you are able to gain insights and awareness into your particular problem or issue which you are facing. And then that awareness itself helps you to sort of develop solutions which all come from within you to either handle the crisis better or to develop a better attitude towards it so that you can make those changes and you can approach the problem head on. When we talk about spiritual talk therapy specifically, so traditional talk therapy would usually involve some or the other concepts or psychological concepts or techniques. My approach is a little different. I incorporate spirituality into my counseling, and it depends. It doesn't have to be a particular spiritual philosophy or geared towards a particular religion. I work a lot with gratitude. I work a lot with affirmations, and of course, if somebody is at a deep spiritual level, I would also introduce some Advaita Vedanta concepts, which I practice myself. I practice Advaita Vedanta in my personal life. So the idea really is that not all the answers are provided by traditional psychology or modern psychology, if you might call it. And the adding that element of spirituality is what I believe gives my counseling a different edge. I won't call it a better edge or a bigger edge or an upper edge or anything like that, but it's different from what traditional counseling is. Although I have to say here that traditional counseling also works, and I also have respect for it. So it's not like spiritual counseling is the only answer, but it's the practice that I do, and it's the philosophy that I personally believe.
Right, right. That's great approach, I think, and I also personally believe in spiritual things, and actually it helps us to connect with our real self. I would say, as you said about Advaita Vedanta, that is like I
Yeah.
and he are the same. We both are same.
Yes.
There is no difference. So it helps us actually connecting over there. So, what do you think? How does faith play a role in this kind of things? And what
Right.
is actually faith according to you? I would say.
So faith is actually a tricky word, Jay, because these days faith is thrown around very loosely. It's important to understand what we actually define as faith. So if I was to again take the example of Advaita Vedanta, it's not about faith in a particular person or a human being or a guruji or a motivational speaker or philosopher or whatever you might call it. Basically, it talks about developing a certain kind of surrender towards you might call it your higher self, you might call it the divine, you might call it god, you might call it any name that you might wish to call it, but essentially the concept really is that you are believing in yourself. You are having that unconditional faith in yourself because, like you very rightly mentioned when you started, that Advaita Vedanta talks about it's non-duality. It
Right.
says that you and the divine are one. It's one energy, it's one entity. And what it's telling you in terms of unconditional faith is essentially, to put it in आज के language में ज़माने में, believing in yourself,
Right.
having that kind of surrender, faith, and belief in yourself. And that is easy to do. It sounds like it's hard to do, but it's actually really easy to do, because nobody's telling you to go believe in a particular organization or in a particular religion or in a particular religious leader or guru or anything like that. It's simply telling you to look within, believe in yourself. You have all the answers within you, and have unconditional surrender and faith in yourself. And it's safe. It's not telling you to abandon your worldly duties. It's not telling you to fall at the feet of some master or leader or spiritual leader or anything like that. It's only telling you, go within, get the answers within, and have that faith.
Right.
The problem really is, Jay, that we very easily believe in others. We easily believe in authority figures. We easily believe in somebody sitting on a particular podium and giving out gyan or giving out advice. But very few of us actually make that leap into ourselves, that leap of faith into ourselves, to sit with ourselves, to understand our own motivations, our own desires, our own goals, ambitions, and simply get all the answers from within.
Right.
And I think that is the need of the hour. Unconditional faith, but in yourself, not in anybody else.
Okay. So why do you think that people are not able to go within? Like, is there a fear in them, or how is it? Because as you said that हम बाहर जो भी बोल रहे हो उसमें हम believe कर लेते हैं, but it's very difficult to go within us and believe in ourselves. So what's the reason for that?
Because when you do that, there are no easy answers, Jay. What we really want in our life is easy answers.
Right.
कि हम किसी के पास जाएंगे और वो बोल देगा हमें कि ऐसा करो, वैसा करो, just do this, forget about anything, give us advice. A lot of us are always looking for advice. We don't want to really do that work where we sit within ourselves, where we close our eyes, where we ask ourselves some fundamental questions. We don't want to do any of that. We simply want to go to an authority figure who will tell us, ये कर लो, या ये इसको जप लो, या ये chanting कर लो, या mantra कर लो, or anything like that. We look for quick fixes. And what I consider that in therapy, that these are band-aids. They make you maybe feel good for a short amount of time. Maybe they make you feel okay and satisfied and content for maybe a few days or a few months. But again, you're going to go back to your old patterns of thinking. Again, you're going to go back to your old way of functioning. And lasting change can only happen when you have decided that, no, I will do the inner work. Even if it's frustrating, even if I'm getting anxiety, even if I'm stressed, even if I don't know the answers to all my problems, I'm going to sit with myself and I'm going to see where that experience takes me. And that's hard to do. It's something, sitting with yourself, not depending on anybody else for an answer, not even a friend, not even a guide, not even some motivational speaker on YouTube, nobody, just doing it, just depending on yourself is very important. And in fact, that's what I tell mostly on my channel on Instagram as well. I always say that if you go through my posts, if you see some of my sessions, you don't need to come to me for therapy. You'll be able to go on a self-healing journey on your own. So it's about true therapy, true spirituality is about never creating dependence. So you shouldn't, even in a counselor and a counseling relationship, it's about, you have a few sessions, you sort of take them through their problem, you give them effective ways and strategies to cope with it, and then you take a step back. Dependency nahi hona chahiye. It should not be that kind of mindset where, okay, somebody's coming to me once a week and they're paying me money and everything is happy, let it go on. No, you as a counselor, you have to be so aware that if you've helped them to a point and if they're getting better and if they feel that they are more in control of their life, you have to back off. You have to be able to end the counseling relationship there and then, and allow them to explore then their lives on their own. And very few people do that. Most people want to keep people stuck in a program or in a session after session after session, and I don't think that's necessary. I think that creates dependency.
Okay. That's quite deep actually, and that's quite insightful, I would say. But here I see that believing in ourselves, we have not seen our real self as of now, right? And though yes, Advait philosophy says that, Advait Vedanta says that I and the divine are the same, but we haven't experienced it yet. plus we haven't seen it by going within us. This reminds me of something which is also known as fear, like fear of going inside, fear of missing out, because faith and fear actually both things which ask us to believe in something which we haven't seen as of yet. So, how does this both come together? Because right now, if I see there are a lot of people out there, and sometimes us also, I would say, would have fears of something. And in that point, how do you actually overcome that? Maybe it is FOMO or fear of being judged or fear of doing something, fear of failure. There are so many kinds of fear. So how do we actually name and how faith actually helps if it does or to overcome the fear?
Okay. So this is a very, very good question. And this is one of the classic questions that is usually asked, when you're on the spiritual path or when you're on Advaita Vedanta, that how do you reconcile both worlds, maybe in a way that, how do you get rid of the fear or how do you believe this to be the truth? Now, there aren't any easy answers to this because it basically requires you to fundamentally, and this is, I know this is going to sound a little confusing, but just stay with me. It basically asks you to question the question itself and the questioner itself. So when we talk about the witness consciousness in Advaita Vedanta, it's telling you about who is it that is observing it? Who is it that is going through pain, going through pleasure, going through happiness, going through success, failure, however you want to define it? Or if to be specific to your question, who is it that is facing fear? Or who is that entity that is facing fear? Is it your mind? Is it something in your subconscious? What is really the essence of it? And once you go deeper into this question, Jay, you realize that actually most of it is a mind's play. Most of it is your mind keeping you trapped in fear. It's your mind keeping you in anxiety. It's your mind keeping you in stress. And similarly, even the positive emotions, happiness, etc., it's mostly all a creation of the mind. Once you realize that there is something else, there is this entity or there is this higher self, whatever you might call it, that is observing that this is happening to you. For example, to put it in simpler terms, I am having a conversation with Jay. So Rohan and Jay are talking to each other. But what is that entity which is aware that I'm having a conversation with you? There is something that is aware that if I was to just take a step back and say something else is observing. What is that something else? It's part of you only for sure. But what is it? It's simply being neutral as an observer to your life. It's not being identified. It's simply aware that a conversation at the moment is occurring. To take this to a deeper level, what Advaita Vedanta tells us is that stay in the witness consciousness mode. And initially that's hard to constantly have this. So when I'm talking to you now, I have this witness feeling that I am talking to you, but something else is aware of this, that this conversation is happening. Once you do that, you distance yourself from pleasure, from pain, from happiness, sadness, success, because you realize that this is something that the body, mind, ego construct is going through. But you are forever free from all this. There is a part of you that is untouched. And this is actually one of the core teachings of Ashtavakra Gita, which also I follow. I do a lot of sessions. I've done a few sessions on Ashtavakra Gita. Most of my life philosophy revolves around Ashtavakra Gita. So it tells you to, and I know this sounds a little, when you tell people about this, they're like, this is, ye kaise hota hai? Ye thodi na hota hai. This makes no sense, But it's something that you have to actually experience. Right. It's very hard to put these things down in words, So I'll explain it with a very small story, where it's a story in a monastery where a monk goes to his teacher, the senior monk, and he tells him about something he's experiencing, a physical ailment. He's going through a physical ailment, a sickness in his body, and he's like, how do I get rid of this pain? How do I get rid of what I'm going through? How do I get rid of all the stress and the anxiety around it? So the senior monk teaches him the witness consciousness method, where he says that you're going through pain and that's reality. That's a fact. Visit a doctor, take your medications for it, take whatever you have to do to reduce the pain, fine. But remember, there is another entity, there's another level of consciousness which is observing that you're going through this. And once you're able to do that, you will sort of, in a very subtle way, you start distancing yourself from the pain as well. So you know that all this is happening at the body level, but you have distanced yourself from it and you are observing yourself as a witness. So the young monk, he does this and he practices this and he really gets it. He gets the concept, and he says that this really works. This has actually helped me to come to peace with my illness. So he goes very happily back to the senior monk saying that, what you told me, it was great and I practiced it and now I'm happy and I'm peace and I'm content. So the senior monk tells him, you've not understood my teaching. You are not happy and content or at peace. You are the witness of that happiness, that content and that peace.
Oh.
And that is how deep the teaching really goes, and I'm going to be the first to admit, Jay, that it's hard to do this. To do this constantly requires effort. It requires a high level of awareness. But why not? Aajkal kitna hai? I mean, if you put on the news, if you put on your Netflix, Amazon Prime, you're constantly bombarded with content and we don't even think twice. We binge watch a show. Saturday, Sunday को सारे 10 seasons देख लिए एक show के या 10 episodes in a season. We've done all that. Surely we can at least take out 15 minutes in our practice. I'm not saying do it for half an hour, 1 hour, but 15-20 minutes in our practice where we use this witness method,
Right.
And once you do that, once you grow in your level of awareness, then these questions will drop, Jay, about fear, about faith. You naturally come to that understanding that there is a reality beyond this. There is a reality beyond me. There's a reality beyond this whole ego construct, mind, body awareness that I have. Find out who that reality is and you'll get all the answers. So to give you another small example, Ramana Maharishi, who used to, he was one of the, very well-known. In fact, he wasn't well known when he was alive as much as he has been after that. He was very different from a typical modern age guru. He actually lived a guru life, like in the sense, not a guru life, but a sage life. Right. No followers, no shosha, no big ashram, nothing. He would just sit on his cot and he would just be by himself. And whenever somebody asked him a question of what is karma, what is faith, what is fear, what is stress, what is desire, his only one answer used to be, find out who is asking this question. Who am I?
Right.
Find out who is this person that's asking this question. Who is that entity, that consciousness that's asking the question? And it seems like a simplistic answer, but no, it's actually a very deep answer.
Exactly. That's really true, I would say, and quite deep. I hope everyone will try to grasp it and try to practice it. But the last important thing that I would ask is, as you said, कि वो consciously effort करना पड़ता है. Like as you give an example of Saturday, Sunday binge watching and everything, वो 15 मिनट बैठने का एक experience लेना पड़ता है before we start doing anything. Okay, or we need to make that conscious effort. But the problem is people are not willing to make that conscious effort. I feel like I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but the problem is over there. Like people know, हाँ ये करना है, ये करना पड़ता है, तो इससे ये मिलता है. Everyone knows that, and that's why people say कि हाँ ये तो ज्ञान की बातें हैं, and just tell it term is as ज्ञान and just leave it. But how do you actually create that? How do you actually make a conscious effort to take a conscious effort of sitting down? I would say. So.
Yes, no, and you're right. And this usually one of the common concerns is that हाँ ये सब बातें sound तो ठीक करती है, but करने जाओ तो it's not so easy, it's not so hard. So again, the question is about why do we associate a practice like this with doing something? We always want to do. Hamesha, whenever, even, and this happens a lot in a counseling relationship also, when I'm doing a session, they'll be like, ठीक है, we've spoken about it, but अभी करे क्या? You have to understand why is that question being asked? Why are we always obsessed with doing? why are we always obsessed कि results कैसे आएंगे, results कब आएंगे, अब मैं क्या इसके बारे में मैं क्या करूँ, how do I do about it, how do I get myself more in activity? That's actually not the answer, Jay. The answer is, so one of my favorite ways of meditation, which even I struggle to do sometimes, which is very hard, which is probably the toughest kind of meditation, is actually not doing anything. You're not breathing. You're not breathing consciously. Like you're not doing any breath work. You're not holding the breath. You're not doing any affirmation, mantra, jap, kuch chanting, kuch bhi nahi. You are simply sitting with your eyes open and you're observing.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I think that I got.
Doesn't.
You're simply sitting with your eyes open and you're observing things around you. That's all you're doing. You're not trying to come up with any kind of judgment. You're not trying to control your thoughts. You're simply in that moment and seeing what comes up. Now, all sorts of things will come up. All sorts of thoughts will come up. All sorts of random thoughts from nowhere. You'll ask yourself, मैं ऐसी चीजें भी कैसे सोच सकता हूँ? Like ऐसे ये आया कहाँ से ये विचार? ये thought आया कहाँ से मेरे मन में? But all that will come. All that will happen. But once you realize that you're not doing anything about it, you're simply observing it, you're simply being aware of the thoughts coming and going. That itself, Jay, would be able to get you to a greater level of awareness where you stop identifying with the mind. So the point of a practice like this is to stop your identification with the mind. And once you stopped identifying with the mind, then you have understood life. But to go back to your question, when people ask this, I would again narrate it with a story where it's a story in Advaita Vedanta which is used very often, where this person goes to a very senior teacher, Advaita Vedanta teacher, and he tells him that teacher, I have understood everything. I've intellectually got it all. I've understood the nature of the soul and witness consciousness and karma and all these philosophies. मुझे सब समझ आ गया है, but I'm still not being able to practice it. What do I do? And the senior teacher says, better luck next birth. Because the answer really is कि मेरे बोलने से तुम नहीं करने वाले हो. Unless you get that अंदर से feeling that that I have to put this into practice. I have no choice. If I've decided to walk on the path of liberation, मेरे लिए सिर्फ ये birth matters. Only in this birth I have to achieve it. In this birth I have to be able to practice the witness consciousness. I have to be able to walk the path of liberation. और अगर नहीं करना है तो keep getting born again and again and again and again. One day you'll figure it out. Some lifetime.
Right. So it's mainly the importance. जितना ज़्यादा importance वो चीज़ का, जितनी ज़्यादा priority वो चीज़ की, we'll start doing those things. And
absolutely.
That's really great, and I hope our listeners and viewers would definitely get that and start putting at least say 15 minutes or at least 10 minutes in their daily schedule for themselves, and start.
In fact, this meditation that I spoke to you about, Jay, the one where you're not actually doing anything, even starting with 5 minutes is enough.
Right.
In a day, even that's enough.
That's great. Yeah, बाद में 5 minutes, 10 minutes अपने आप हो जाएगा, फिर 15 minutes अपने आप होते जाएगा. It is like a loop, I would say. And you will just go on increasing that time. Once you realize that you are actually realizing what you always wanted to realize. Whatever.
और अगर आप 5 घंटा न्यूज देख सकते हो, which is Congress versus BJP, surely 5 minutes you can remove in your time. 5 minutes is all I'm asking. That's it.
Definitely. I hope after listening to this, our viewers and listeners would definitely take out time for themselves for at least 5 minutes. And thank you, Rohan, for actually sharing such deep and wonderful thoughts and practice with us. And I hope everyone would have enjoyed it.
You're welcome, Jay. Thank you so much for having me over. It was really nice talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.